Guy on Indy presents the podcast. Today's topic, Malcolm X. Today's special guest, Dr. David Polizzi. Today's podcast is sponsored by Indy Filmmakers Forum at yahoo.com. Are you interested in professional production and live in the Midwest? Then contact Indy Filmmakers Forum at yahoo.com, the premier film networking group in the Midwest. Okay, welcome back. We are here with Dr. David Polizzi discussing Malcolm X and his book, A Phenomenological Hermeneutic of Anti-Black Racism in the Autobiography of Malcolm X. Now we're on to Chapter 4, From Homeboy to Hustler, The Transformation of Malcolm Little. Okay, now in Malcolm X's autobiography, he moves from Lansing, Michigan to live with his sister Ella in Boston. Could you tell us a little bit of the background of his life when he moves in with Ella and how this reflects his book and the name of the father?
Yeah, I mean, Ella is a stepsister who has him come to Boston to kind of get him out of the system, to get him out of Michigan, to bring him into the black community in Boston. She's doing okay relative to, again, the types of jobs that were allowed. He uses that as a way to get into the world. There's a famous scene, I think it's when he's in Boston with he and a friend, and they have the zoot suits and the whole bit. And so he's getting involved in the hustle.
And he's young. He's like, what, 16 or younger?
He's 16, yeah, 16 years old, 16, 17. And so he's doing a lot of teenage things. He's getting involved in stuff.
And this is the first time he's really had freedom, because before he was in the welfare state, he was in a foster care and didn't really have the freedom that he sensed that he had with his sister in Boston.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so he goes back and forth between Boston and Manhattan. And I guess in one of his visits at Manhattan, he starts getting involved in kind of the organized crime scene, the numbers racket.
But before that, wasn't he like he was working in the trains? He was like a sandwich vendor. Yeah. And he sort of had some success at that.
Well, he's doing these kind of menial jobs.
Yeah. And he talks a little bit about the airs people put on, like that somebody in the Boston neighborhood, which was an African-American neighborhood, they say they're in banking, but really they're the janitor in a bank. Right, and so he had a problem with people putting on a false pretense. Right, that was big to him. Yeah,
and it was this idea of, and for him, the issue would be you're not realizing that they're giving you crumbs. You're not realizing that you're not a banker, and they would never let you be a banker.
Right.
And so he kind of sees that, and there's an interesting scene, when he goes to Little's in New York, ironically, Little's in New York.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not sure if this is exactly in the book, but he meets Indy and Archie.
Yeah.
And
the numbers guy.
Yeah, and he tells him, you should join me. But he tells him he's working, he works on a train, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And then Archie convinces him more, and he says, "What are you going to tell your boss?" And he goes, "Well, I already told him." And so he's in this other thing. And that context is not all that different from probably what a lot of young Italian-American adolescents would have aspired to when you're in a poorer community. The people who are straight are working their butts off and not making very much. But it's the cats with the cars and the suits and the women who have all the respect. Mm-hmm. They also have the guns. Mm. And it becomes an attractive pull where you want respect, you want money, you want the benefits of money. Well, it ain't going to be working 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And so you get attracted to those situations that seem to provide you with nothing else that you see around you will.
Right. And so now when he moves from Boston to where he's more in Harlem, and he relocates to Harlem, he starts crime, the business of crime, like selling marijuana to musicians is one of them. Did he fix up girls? I think he got in trouble for fixing up a woman with an undercover military guy. Something that he got caught with.
I know he got more in trouble with dating white women himself.
Dating white women, okay.
And when he and the Shorty character in the autobiography get arrested, one of the things they're charged with is really having sex with white women.
Right. Yeah, this is later when they do the Burke release that gets him incarcerated. Before we get to that, though, you do mention about in your book that black being the world is realized by his criminal life because it's acceptable to be...
it's realized, black being in the world in this context, it is what it is at any moment.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's, because, again, being in the world is thrown. Yeah. There's always, is it white being in the world? Is it black being in the world? Is it being in the world as a Muslim, being in the world as a Catholic, as an atheist? So one is always in the world, generally driven by the projects they're pursuing. So that's why I would say, when I've written about addiction, it's being in the world as addict. Well, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And that probably also means that we being in the world as the type of addict, right? Are you an alcoholic? Do you do coke? Do you do meth? Do you heroin? Do you trip, right? All of those things speak to within the context of addiction, a way of being in the world. Right. That covers over other possibilities. If no other, it covers over the possibility of not using drugs. Right. I mean, because being in the world as, in this context, again, all hyphenated, would mean that that's maybe the majority way you take up the world. And where we talk about kind of changes in this possibility is, you're not a gangster all the time. You're not a asshole all the time, hopefully. You're not an addict all the time. There's moments when... And so that's when other possibilities of being can emerge. Yeah. More in a more tragic example, when Dylan Roof, goes into that church in Charleston and kills those people. He initially has to struggle with this idea that he admits to the FBI interrogators. He said, they treated me so well for the first 45 minutes I was there. That I really started to question whether I could kill these people because they were so nice and they were so accepting and they didn't push me to participate and they welcomed me, etc. But then the other part comes in where he must kill them. In a sense, that becomes now a they that is taken over, that has become so dominant that even in those moments of possibility where transformation for him would have been possible, it's not strong enough to forego the reason he was there. Gotcha.
One thing in this period that marks a change of him coming into the community is he gets a conch. Could you discuss the racism involved in him receiving a conch and how he feels about it after?
Because the conch was about straightening your black hair, straightening the fro. Yeah. That's why, in the 60s, it was, you'd have the big fros and everything because that was, no, I'm not gonna burn my hair up.
Right. So that was the response to that.
Absolutely.
In the 60s was the response to the 40s conchs.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Well, I know that Prince conked his hair once.
Yeah, but it's the idea of straightening your hair. The idea was, well, why don't you want to look like who you are? Yeah. Well, in part...
So is it like a self-hatred kind of? Is that the racism effect? Is the self-hatred that it puts on yourself?
Yeah, I guess some would say that. There was self-hatred that I have to change who I am. Yeah. And you could say that when he's in prison and he says, take it all off. It's just, no, I'm not going to,
I'm not going to play that game anymore.
I'm not going to play that game anymore.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, well, yeah. All right, thank you for listening. Once again, Guy and Indy, we invite you to listen in. Up next, Chapter 5, The Prison Years. Hi, it's Guy on Indy. I'm here to sing It's True, a song by Guy Thomas Lowry. A man can move a mountain, it's true. Not really a hard thing to do. Find the right mountain, find the right means, have the right methods, or so it seems. Nothing can stop you unless they deem it's you they'd most like to move.